Hey, welcome back everybody. This is going to be supplement 3 to the 10-minute leadership talks. And just a reminder, if you haven't watched all the videos up to this point, then be sure to do that just because some of the stuff might be confusing or you might not know where we're at because we've covered previous topics. I'm going to refer back to those. So today we're going to cover 2 subtopics. It's going to be presentation and daily schedule. These are just based off of some questions that I've received over the past couple of days based on the videos, and hopefully just adds to some of the past videos that we've gone over with those primary 5 lessons. So presentation, this question came from somebody who I talked to on the phone the other day, said, hey, how do you know what to say or what are you basing it off of? Is there a script behind you or something like that? So this is something that I've preached to all my students and something I'm extremely proud of and emphasize a lot in my instruction, and that's the fact that you have to know exactly what you're going to talk about without notes in order to properly present a topic or a lesson or whatever. I'm a firm believer of that, and that's going to lead to a couple things. The first is confidence. So when you know what you're talking about without any questions, like you know everything front and back, it's going to show and it's going to instill that confidence in you, and that's going to make that presentation extremely more valuable and more effective. If you're sort of reading notes or you're stumbling over things or maybe not entirely sure what you're talking about, it's going to really impact that presentation, and people are either not going to listen to you because your credibility is gone, or they're not going to be engaged because they don't think that you know what you're talking about. So that's huge to me, is you have to know what you're talking about. I would say one of the things I talk about in my lessons a lot, and this is going to be specifically for the military crowd out there, is we teach operations orders at the school that I'm at. So within the operations orders, when you get to that paragraph 3, when you get to your execution, especially the scheme of maneuver section, we always teach that you need to put your notes down and talk to your people, because if you are sitting there reading off of a checklist for your notes, does that really show you or show your people that you know what you're talking about and that you know the plan? Because at that point, it's your plan, it's your mission, and if you're still referring back to notes or something else, then I don't really have the confidence in my leadership that they know what's going on and that they really have faith in their own plan. So I think that applies to all kinds of presentations. So if you're giving a presentation and you're staring at notes, or you have to read and refer back to things all the time, you're probably not knowing your presentation as much as you should. Now, there's nothing wrong with having notes with you, like something like this, and we'll get into that a little bit, but maybe a checklist of things that you want to make sure you cover, or maybe something that you have as definitions or specific numbers, things that you want to get exactly right. There's nothing wrong with having that note with you, or having a list of notes with you so you can refer back to them during the class or presentation. But in general, you want to know that information front and back, in and out, before you present it, so that there's no holes in your presentation. And then when you do get those questions, you can say, hey, I know the answer to that, and here it is. And when you spit that answer off quick, then it's going to instill that confidence. So confidence is going to come from that knowledge. Make sure you do your studying before you present something and you know it in and out, so there's no flaws in your presentation. The second thing we kind of referred to already is that engagement. So you really want to engage people, and part of that's going to be from not having those notes and that you're actually talking to them, right? We talk about eye contact and the confidence and owning the room back in the presence lesson. But the other part of that is getting them involved, so getting that feedback. Now, depending on what kind of presentation it is, it might not be warranted or it might not be appropriate to get feedback during the presentation, but if you can, then I encourage that as much as possible. It's going to give ownership to the student or to the listener. It's going to make them feel engaged and feel like, hey, I'm a part of this lesson, or I'm a part of this seminar, discussion, whatever you're doing, and that's going to increase their learning and really put that buy-in into the lesson. So engage them as much as possible. And one thing I challenge you to either look up or kind of research is the adult or the experiential learning model. And what that kind of is, it's fairly new model in which you engage the students or the listeners, the audience, before the course begins with some sort of a prior experience. So if you kind of bring them back to a common known experience, or put them back as a kid when they were feeling some sort of way that's involved with the lesson that you're giving, that's what that adult and experiential learning model is about. So definitely do some research on that, and it's definitely a good technique that I like to use so that you kind of bring in that engagement and the ownership into the lesson. So the other thing with presentation, and I'm not an expert on PowerPoints or things like that, but with regard to PowerPoints or whatever kind of media or aid that you're using in your presentation, try not to make the focus on the aid. So if you're building a PowerPoint, don't make the focus on the PowerPoint. The focus should be on your message and the information that you're passing on. I think that's a big mistake that I see a lot, is that people flood PowerPoints with paragraphs and just definitions and words and all kinds of stuff, and every now and then it's needed, like maybe definitions or some key statistics or something like that. But for the most part, your presentation should come from you. All right, that kind of goes back to the confidence thing. If you know the information, then you're going to be able to kind of spread it out better than if you're just reading off of a PowerPoint. So that would be something to move forward with if you're used to making presentations or PowerPoints and you put a lot of words on the board and they're just sitting there reading the screen instead of listening to you. That might not be the best thing, but again, I'm not an expert there, so maybe certain lines of work that might be more beneficial. But just something, remember, the presentation should be about the information that you're sending, not the way that you're sending it. That's much more important. Secondly is going to be that daily schedule. So a couple of people asked me about this. Some of my old students said, hey, this is something that we learned a lot about, and I don't have a whole lot to offer on this one, especially because everybody's line of work is going to be different. Your schedule is going to be different. You're going to have different meetings. You're going to have other obligations that you have to do throughout the day. But in general, what I always like to tell my students is basically two kind of sections of your day. The first section of your day is going to be the important things that you have to get done, and everything's important, so I shouldn't say that, but it's going to be the things that you absolutely have to get done, and that's where prioritizing is come into play. I hear a lot of people use the phrase glass balls and rubber balls. So glass balls, if you drop them, they're going to break. Rubber balls, they're going to bounce. So take care of your glass balls first and then your rubber balls. That's one way to look at it. I think it's pretty effective, but the way I just think is prioritize your tasks for the day. All right, they can be tasks that you do every day, or it could be new tasks that you want to accomplish that day. Doesn't matter. Prioritize them and make sure you list off the things that you absolutely have to get done. So the way I like to go about my day is I try to get those things done as soon as possible. We're still doing it well, right? You don't want to rush anything ever, but I want to get those tasks done that I have to get done that day as soon as possible, because then that kind of frees up the rest of your day to do the things that you want to do. Thinking back to when I was a small unit leader, student commander, company commander, whatever it was, I tried to get all those administrative tasks done that I needed to, preparing for meetings, getting slides built, getting reports built, whatever it was. That way, when those things were done, I could spend the rest of my day with my Marines, and then I could see what they're doing, spend some time with them, work with them if I had time, and that really made my days go by very efficiently, and it helped out to build that rapport with your Marines or with your personnel, whatever kind of team you're a part of. So I strongly recommend to prioritize your schedule, get those things done early on. That way you can focus on the stuff that you really want to do, which is probably a little bit more fun or more exciting or more engaging with your people later on in the day. And then a part of that is you got to find that balance, right? So if you're constantly finding yourself away from those tasks that you need to do, then you might not be getting them done the way that you're supposed to. You might be rushing them. So especially the higher level leadership you go up, you're going to have more of those tasks and more of those responsibilities that you have to get done. And they might not be the most exciting things in the world, but you got to get them done, and you're getting them done for your people. Remember, we're working for them. You sitting there putting the time in is going to help them out in the long run. So that's what we're there for. That's our job as a leader, is to take care of them. And so if you're not spending time doing that, then I'd challenge you that you're probably not doing it well, or you're not putting as much time into it as you should. But the flip side of that is if you're spending all the time doing those things, you're not spending any time with your people, or you're not checking up on them and doing things like counseling or mentoring and stuff like that we've talked about in previous lessons, then maybe you want to pull back on those tasks that you need to do, or maybe you're just spending too much time on them. And then that's just whatever kind of personal efficiency you have with regard to your work or your personal tasks, something that you want to look at. So make sure you balance out the things that you have to do with the things that you want to do. You don't want to spend too much time away from your people, but you also don't want to spend too much time with them, because you need to give them their space and let them talk behind your back a little bit and have some fun with you and stuff like that. But you also want to spend as much time with them as reasonably possible, so that they know that you're engaged, they know that you care, and you're there with them, even though you're still the leader of that team. You're a part of that team as well, and that's going to go a long way for you. So that's all I got for the daily schedule and supplement number 3. So keep sending questions my way, and whatever you guys want me to talk about and help out either you or your teams, I'd be happy to cover. So I appreciate your time, and have a great day.